Hi, I'm Heather Boutwell. I'm the head of marketing for FlavorCloud. We help businesses, we help online retailers go global. I'm joined by Shipbob and two of their merchants. So if you guys could introduce yourselves.
Casey Armstrong, CMO over at Shipbob. If you're not familiar with Shipbob, we're a global fulfillment platform. We've got close to 40 fulfillment centers around the world, and we work with about 7,000 brands, and we ship millions of packages per month.
Hi guys, I'm Nick Stobie. I am the founder and CEO of Teema. We are an online brand, heavily DTC, selling traditional Turkish towels and blankets. We've been in business for about 5 years and trying to keep up the growth rate over the last 5 years by kind of expanding into international now, which we're doing with the help of Shipbob and FlavorCloud, who have made it a lot easier for us. And I'm very happy to be here.
Hello, I'm Robin Cagan. I'm the head of operations at OneSkin. We are a science-focused longevity company. So we have a topical face lotion. We also have a body lotion. And we have been in business for a little over a year now selling. So fairly new to the market as well, but growing very quickly. So that's very exciting.
So Casey, would you tell us a little bit about why Shipbob decided to prioritize international shipping?
Well, I think kind of what Robin just mentioned really encapsulates a lot of it, where they've been around for, let's say, a little over a year, and they're already working on their international strategy. And so we're just starting to see that a lot more and more, where these large brands, they want an international presence. It's so easy to get in front of the consumer directly on a digital level from an advertising perspective, whether it's Facebook or TikTok or something like that, but then how do you actually get the goods to them? And so whether you're fulfilling in the US and you want to get that to them with a great experience through DDP, which I know we're going to jump into soon, or you want to have your inventory spread across the world, it's just so much easier to start testing out the market internationally online and then shipping from the US, but you want to provide a great customer experience with something like FlavorCloud, and then you can start really investing in the internationalization. But we're just seeing brands of all sizes, but even earlier in their journey, really think about global much earlier in the process.
Did you start seeing more cross-border demand during the pandemic?
Yeah, I honestly think that the catalyst was just the pandemic drove it, I think, because there was so much competition ramping up. And so these brands, they didn't want to just compete across the US market, but they wanted to go to Canada, they wanted to go to the UK, they wanted to go across Europe or Australia or somewhere else. And so that was really the forcing mechanism to start thinking about going global and then start doing it in an intelligent way and really thinking about, again, the customer experience through something like FlavorCloud.
So what kind of challenges did you experience in trying to go more international?
I mean, it's, of course, price is what people are thinking of a lot, and then the shipping speed. But what stood out to me the most when we started working together, and I'm sure they can mirror or echo a lot of this, is the lost package rate. And so not only is it just such a pain to even get your goods, but just the lost package rate that we have since rolling out a truly scalable DDP solution instead of just shipping things DDU, it's just fallen off a cliff in a good way. So like again, the lost package rate, the error rate is as close to zero as you can get, which everybody wins in that scenario.
And so how did you overcome that obstacle?
We partnered with you guys, so.
Didn't plant that question. Great. So if a company is thinking about testing a new market, what are some strategies that you've seen your customers use?
Again, I mean, what's nice with Facebook or Google or TikTok is you can just start targeting specific markets and just getting very hyper-focused. Again, like maybe we're only going to target Canada, we're only going to target the UK. And you can start saying, what are the total customer acquisition costs there? And then based off your COGS and what your total fulfillment cost is, you can start just playing with the math. Like, is this something that we should even test? But again, that's what I love about the digital marketing is you can just test and learn very quickly. And then from there, you can say, okay, well, maybe we should use a DDP solution. So they're more or less getting the same experience if we had our inventory within their country. And then we can turn that on essentially overnight. And then maybe over time, they might want to co-locate inventory in the markets that they're serving. But just the speed that you can really test the market and then scale it from there.
Yeah. One of the things that we've seen is that companies will look at their Google Analytics and see where they're already getting organic traffic or traffic from paid sources, and then say, oh, I should be testing this market because I haven't started there yet.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll both jump into it some, but it's just, again, even like with seeing the cost per 1,000 impressions or CPMs on all of these paid channels just skyrocketing, and then you can try to find arbitrage opportunities outside of the US as well.
Monetize it.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so Robin and Nick, do you guys want to tell us about why you decided to go international?
Sure. It's the main reason that we went international is really what Casey touched on, which is like from the front end, it's an incredibly easy process to change the targeting on an ad set or a campaign on paid social and potentially unlock millions of new customers. And sometimes you'll go to a new market and you'll figure out that the CPMs are even lower there, your return on ad spend is even higher, which can often offset the cost of duties and shipping, and that has allowed us to essentially reach millions more people without having to do any more work besides just changing the targeting on an ad set.
For us, the desire from the customer base was already there. We were getting so many people reaching out to us. We're shipping right now in the US and Canada, planning for further, but check back in a few months. And we just needed to figure out how to do that. So instead of figuring out how to do all of the paperwork ourselves and making sure that that would run smoothly, because it's not going to if you do it entirely yourself, we decided to partner with FlavorCloud and Shipbob, make sure all the paperwork was just like buttoned up for us. We could essentially just have our customer place the order and be delivered to them. And that kind of goes into the DDU, DDP. Our customers very much just wanted it to be delivered to their door. They didn't have to worry about anything. So when we were deciding between DDU, delivery duty unpaid, and delivery duty paid, it was either we ship it DDU, we ship it to a location, and then the customer has to figure out how to go pick it up, how to pay all the duties, taxes, fees. They didn't want to do that. They complained about it all the time, and they were like, why can't this just be delivered to us? They're already paying a premium for our product, so why not figure out how to just, ease of mind, it's just delivered straight to them. So we switched to DDP. It was effortless, seamless. We had no issues. I don't think we've had any returns, any missing packages since we started with FlavorCloud, so thank you. And we haven't had any customer come to us and say, hey, do you have a DDU option? And I'm sure that's different for other companies, but for us specifically, it was the customer checking out of our cart, paying one time, and then not thinking about it, having the delivery just delivered to them in 5 to 7 days, and that was it. So seamless. And another thing for us in terms of shipping internationally is we don't have to deal with different regulations in Canada for our product itself. If we go to Europe and we're dealing with other countries there, we have to check all of the regulations for the ingredients in our product and see what is able to be sold there and what's not. I actually used to work with a company in hair care and hair color, and we had to completely change the formulation of the product itself so that we could sell it in Europe. So we had a US version and an EU version, and we had different like CMOs that we were working with, one in the US and one in Milan, and they were separate. And ultimately they performed the same, but it still had to be different. Regulations are different. So it gets complicated.
So Nick, I know that you have had a different experience with DDU versus DDP. So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. So I actually started shipping to Canada when I was still shipping out of my dad's garage. And we were doing a DDU option. And first of all, just dealing with customs in general is really hard, even with just one country, just Canada. And obviously the rules and the rates and everything are different for every country. So taking that on yourself is kind of a huge task that if you're gonna actually ship internationally beyond just maybe one other country, you'd probably have to hire staff and someone to kind of manage the whole customs and duties process. And so we did DDU for a while, and basically the problem with that was it was a very poor customer experience. people would, pay $120 for a package. It would show up at their door, and the UPS guy's asking for $70 before he gives it to them. And obviously, being in the US, I've never had that happen to me, but I can imagine that it's not a process you want to deal with. So we ended up with a lot of angry customers, so we kind of stopped for a while. And then when we got back with Shipbob, we implemented DDU again, and this time we had a warning, basically, on checkout for international customers that said, you may be charged customs when the package arrives. And Canada is weird in that some packages get to Canada and they don't get charged, and then some do. So we didn't really have any system to let them know how much they would be charged, whether or not they actually would be charged. So it was just a very confusing process. We then switched to just DDP, which is a much better system from the customer's perspective. But we definitely saw a bit of a hit to our conversion rate in Canada because, instead of people getting that $70 charge when the package came to their door, they were getting it at the last step of checkout, which is also, kind of annoying. And so what we've done is we've kind of gone with the hybrid model of DDP and DDU because it allows people to kind of, one, understand what could potentially happen if they go with DDU, knowing that they saw the shipping rate that included customs charges, and we let them know that if you go with DDU, you may still have to pay this charge, but you can take your chances. And so that gives everyone kind of multiple options. People who want to attempt to save some money, they can try and hope that their package goes through, and then people who want to just have the package delivered straight to their door have that option as well.
What percentage of people just don't want to pay when they deliver it?
Well, that's an issue too, is that people will send the package back. So DDP is a better system because at least you don't have to pay 2 shipping charges to figure that out. Whereas with DDU, it'll arrive at their door and they'll say, I'm not paying this, send it back. And so then you end up with a double shipping charge and the product back. So I would say probably about 10 to 20% of people will just not accept the package, depending on how big the customs charge is.
So Robin, what would you say if somebody is considering going international for the first time? What advice would you give them?
I would say definitely partner with someone. So if you have a FlavorCloud, just do that. It really is. I have done the route of doing it yourself. It is so time consuming, plus so detailed. You have to get all of it perfectly right. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. There's additional paperwork, and especially being in the US, you don't always deal with all of that. If you're just shipping within the US, there's no additional paperwork. You have a label, and you make sure that that's on there. That's it. Sometimes there's a simple packing slip, but there's so much additional paperwork. So partnering with someone that just understands what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, make sure that it's just at the beginning. The customer doesn't then have to deal with it, especially if it's DDP. So partnering, for sure, is the way to go. It is seamless, and when you have a small team like I do right now, we're about 10 full-time people and dealing with a big business, lots of orders. There's no way, literally no way, that we would be able to do it if we didn't have a partner.
I have a question for Nick. So,
Okay.
So you talked about the conversion rate hit from DDP versus DDU, but you're already paying the customer acquisition costs, and you're paying for shipping both directions, and then you're also caught with the inventory again from the returns perspective.
Right.
So I guess how do you think about that or factor that into your equation when you're thinking about DDP, whether it's in Canada or somewhere else?
Well, with DDP, that's not much of an issue, the package coming back, unless it's just like a standard return.
Right.
It's more of a duties unpaid issue when they get hit with the customs charge when it arrives. That's when people will send it back. And for that, we essentially we kept a spreadsheet essentially of Canadian orders that were sent back and what additional costs we were receiving from that. And again, I think it was around 10-ish% of orders people were just denying them, which our costs were significantly cheaper in Canada when we switched our advertising to Canada. So we were able to manage it, but it wasn't a good system because you obviously want your customers to be happy. You want people to, love your brand and tell their friends about your brand. And, in that experience, we had people that really didn't like our brand because of just the whole confusing experience. And that's something that you definitely don't want. And so DDU as an option for us makes sense. Because also for smaller orders to Canada, they usually don't get charged. And we have noticed as far as the average order value of customers who have larger orders and spend more money almost always use the DDP option. So having that is definitely a big plus because you obviously want to give the higher paying customers whatever it is that they want in the checkout process. But then having the DDU allows you to kind of appeal to customers that are only going to order one product or whatever it is. And it definitely, having both for us is a really good system.
I feel like sometimes customers, if they're using DDP, they almost don't mind paying an additional charge because it's all at once. So instead of them choosing DDU, knowing that they're going to be charged when they receive it, but then refusing it when it's actually there, it's like, well, I don't want to pay twice, even though it's going to end up being the same amount.
Right.
So it's just like a mindset of okay, can I just pay one time on checkout? And then they forget about it, they don't mind it, and then the product gets there. Oh, they're so happy.
Right.
It's received, they don't need to worry about paying any more money. So it's just interesting how many people actually refuse it.
Well, and something that we've realized is, being from the US and pretty much every brand has a fulfillment center in the US, so it's very rare that, unless you accidentally order something from AliExpress through a dropshipping website and get a customs charge. But we've noticed in these other countries, they are kind of more used to the process of potentially ordering from a brand that only has fulfillment in America and having to pay a customs charge. So to me, the idea of having a $100 cart and then seeing a $70 charge at checkout sounds crazy. But to a lot of these people, it's something that they understand and they are often expecting. And so it's not necessarily a deterrent to prevent people from checking out.
It's interesting to me that the two of you have had such different experiences in DDP versus DDU. And I think it's interesting that you, Nick, tested both options and found that the hybrid was what worked. Have you done any other testing or were there any other surprises that you found when you started to go global?
We're very early in our global expansion. It's mostly just in Canada. One thing we did try and test was using specific carriers, and this is when I was still fulfilling myself. Because we did find, I think it was USPS. It's not a written rule anywhere, but they somehow have a relationship with Canada Post, and most of their packages don't get charged customs to Canada, which was interesting. And so we used to only use USPS, but we use the Shipbob combined rate with Shipbob to get the best rate. And it's still the same system of occasionally packages don't get charged, but we found DDP is kind of the best solution. And now with DDP, we're able to test new markets outside of Canada, which is a little bit trickier because obviously shipping to Canada is cheaper than shipping to Australia from the US. But it's allowing us to kind of explore other markets that we may eventually want to open a fulfillment center with one day. And if we do, we have a partner who already has a setup there and we can just send a container that way. And
What are your next new markets, do you think? What are the ones you're interested in testing?
Well, our products are essentially beach towels that kind of double as home products and travel products. So we definitely want to go to Australia. There's a lot of emerging brands out there selling similar products to us, so we kind of want to get in there quickly. And then after that, probably UK, Europe would be. And I started the company as a backpacking product originally. So anywhere where there's a lot of people who travel, Germany I know has a lot of people who travel. I think we would like to get into those markets as well.
Yeah. What about you, Robin? Any testing or surprises in going international?
I think we don't have that many SKUs at the moment that we're selling to the customer, so it's a lot more consistent, right? It's we have our face product right now, we have our body product, more to come. But we're seeing very consistent charges in terms of what the duties and taxes and fees will be. So that's been really interesting to see for all of the customers. And you know, like you were talking about before, as long as like that note is there on the checkout explaining to them what's happening with the shipping, we haven't had too many hiccups. So like crossing my fingers, but yeah, nothing wild, honestly.
And hopefully that consistency leads to repeat buyers. I mean, that's, I think the advantage of DDP is that the seamless experience from the customer side is a better experience.
Definitely.
Leads to more
Absolutely.
repeat buyers.
I think we got a question out there too.
Oh, yes, sir.
Robin and Nick, obviously you're both shipping to Canada and a lot of people vertically in the 51st state. But would be curious if both of you can kind of shed a light on what does the average buyer in Canada look like and how does that differ from your average buyer here in the US? And then for Nick, a follow-up to that would be, what does an average DDU buyer look like and what does an average DDP buyer look like?
I'll start. So what we do when we test out a new country, we essentially use all of our existing advertising. So we do find that, you know, Canada and the US being culturally pretty similar, we end up with a similar audience that's buying the towels. I would say that it skews slightly older because it is essentially more expensive because of the duties and shipping charges. So it does skew a little bit older and a little more higher income demographics. But the difference between the DDU and the DDP is the DDU shipping rate allows us to kind of tap into the younger audience and, you know, people that maybe aren't in the higher demographic of financial income who just want to order one towel or something versus ordering, you know, 4 to 10 or whatever it is. So having both is really great for us because our product is very broad. We sell towels. And, you know, all types of people want towels. And being able to have options that are both potentially more cost affordable, or maybe not at the end of the day, but potentially more cost affordable versus having an option that's just more expensive but more convenient, allows us to kind of appeal to a much wider audience.
I think for OneSkin, because we are a science-backed company, our 4 co-founders are actually scientists. So they founded a proprietary peptide that's in our product itself. So most of our customers at first are very much paying attention to the science world and longevity and try to do a lot of research in that field. And so that's probably our first customer in general. So anyone tapped into that in any way, whether that be US, whether that be Canada, that's really who we spoke to. And at this point, now we're kind of getting out to the people that just want to take better care of their skin, and they're not necessarily a certain age range. It's someone that's a lot younger and they just want to start taking care of their skin now and continue that on. So, it's a lot of people that are probably very digital and they want to pay attention to podcasts and just looking what's going on e-commerce, and hopefully we'll hit retail shelves at some point. But as long as those people are in tune with what's happening in the science world and like anti-aging and age reversal, that's really where our customer is coming from.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, telling us about your international expansion journey. Thank you, Casey, for joining us with the Shipbob team. And thank you to the Guelph team. This event has been wonderful. It's been great to get together, especially after the pandemic, to see everybody's smiling faces. So this event has been wonderful, and we appreciate you.